Now, wait a minute. I'm going to respond to this because obviously making change is not about what you believe. It's not about a speech you make. It is about working hard. There are 7,000 kids in New Hampshire who have health care because I helped to create the Children's Health Insurance Program. There are 2,700 National Guard and Reserve members who have access to health care because on a bipartisan basis, I pushed legislation through over the objection of the Pentagon, over the threat of a veto from President Bush. I want to make change, but I've already made change. I will continue to make change. I'm not just running on a promise of change. I'm running on 35 years of change. I'm running on having taken on the drug companies and the health insurance companies, taking on the oil companies. So, you know, I think it is clear that what we need is somebody who can deliver change. And we don't need to be raising the false hopes of our country about what can be delivered. The best way to know what change I will produce is to look at the changes that I've already made.
In all these years, she's been saying I've been a real beauty all along, but in all seriousness, no, there wasn't really a question that he took issue with. It seemed to be Donald Trump was taking issue with the news media role to do basic fact-checking. How much money has been raised? There have been discrepancies about that for months. Where is the money going? We didn't get a full accounting of that until today, but Donald Trump was basically saying at this press conference that the coverage is the problem, that he's been taking phone calls from some of these veterans organizations complaining and crying that they don't like some of the stories out there. And so this is what we've seen before from Donald Trump. He attacks his critics. He attacks the press. I've been out on the campaign trail with him countless times where he's talked about this disgusting news media or the dishonest news media. That's why I asked him that question in that fashion today. And I talked to a Trump campaign advisor earlier today, Wolf, who said, you know what? These lines of attacks against the news media, they work with Donald Trump supporters. And frankly, this advisor said the public doesn't really much care about reporters anyway. And so they sort of look at it as a win-win. But no question about it, when he goes after a colleague like Tom Llamas from ABC and calls him sleazy, that is sad, as Donald Trump might put it. It's certainly not the case. And we've heard this before in other campaigns, Wolf. George W. Bush, you recall, referred to a New York Times reporter as a major league a-hole. Dick Cheney chimed in big time, but that was off. They didn't know they were on mic. They thought they were off mic when they said that this was Donald Trump saying this to a reporter to his face at a press conference. But in the end, Wolf, the Trump campaign feels like this is something that plays really well with his supporters out there. They're not really worried about how his supporters are taking what happened today at all, Wolf.
All right, Jim Acosta reporting for us from New York. Jim, thanks very much. I want to bring in Republican Congressman Chris Collins of New York. He's a Trump supporter. He's joining us now live. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us.
Oh, good to be with you from a beautiful day in Buffalo, Wolf.
Nice to hear your voice from Buffalo, your hometown, my hometown. What's your reaction to Donald Trump's comments today? Are you comfortable with the way he singled out the news media for being, quote, sleazy?
Donald is being Donald, and, you know, as the country's moving forward, his supporters are saying, you know, he's saying what they're thinking. There is a bias in the press in many cases. People like yourself, Wolf, I mean, you're fair, you're honest. He's not referring to you, but there is a bias. I've been attacked myself. I've been in politics 6, 7 years now, so I let it just come off my shoulders. Donald is new to this. He's taking it personally, and what we do know is if you throw a punch at Donald, he's going to punch back. But when the country's focused on going in the wrong direction, Hillary is not a change agent. Donald is the change agent that we need. And you know, when you break a lot of China, you're going to make a lot of noise. So with Trump supporters, I'd say he is saying what they are thinking. So it's not hurting him at all with Trump supporters. And the silent majority is saying it's about time somebody called it out for what it is. He may be, you know, a little blunt or even more than a little blunt in what he's saying. But I actually think America, where 80% know we're going in the wrong direction, are in fact applauding Donald Trump for calling it out like it is.
But don't you think that it's, you know, if reporters are doing their jobs, they're just vetting, you're a politician, he says he raised $6 million, they say, fine, that's great, $6 million for veterans is really impressive. Where did the money go? And for months and months and months, they couldn't release that information. What's wrong with reporters asking those kinds of questions?
Oh, there's nothing wrong with asking, and now the question's been answered. They were certainly very impatient, not nearly so impatient with Hillary's email scandal. It took the Inspector General of the State Department to now call her out for it. So the aggressive press on donations, I would say, was overboard, as it's now played out. Donald Trump raised a lot of money, contributed his own money, and he asked a legitimate question. As Hillary Clinton has made millions of dollars, as Bill Clinton has made millions of dollars, given their speeches, what have they done for the veterans? That's a legitimate question. Donald asked it today. Where has the press been on the Clinton Foundation and all the monies that they've raised but has not been donated? We have not heard the same attack on the multi-millions, if not hundreds of millions, on the Clinton Foundation that you heard from Donald Trump over 4 months, vetting the agencies to make sure they were properly registered.
Congressman, with all due respect, whether the email server, the Clinton Foundation, the speaking fees, that has been thoroughly reported by the mainstream news media. There have been thousands of articles, a lot of TV coverage about all of that. You've seen it all on television. You've read it in the newspapers.
Sure, but the answers have we've never really received the answers. It
was what? I didn't hear what you said.
I'm saying it's had a lot of coverage, but I don't believe we've yet to hear the answers from the Clintons, especially you get back to the email situation. Best I heard, Mrs. Clinton was still a couple of days ago saying, I didn't do anything wrong.
No, she said she made a mistake. She says if she had to do it all over again, she would have done it a lot differently. She told me that last week. She's been saying that for a while, and now, of course,
well, she said she made a mistake when other people are saying she put the country's security at risk. There's a big difference between saying I made a mistake and what really happened there. And the Inspector General report, which is finally honed in as it should, is something way, way more than I made a mistake.
Yeah, well, we obviously, as you know, all of the news organizations reported extensively on the Inspector General's report at the State Department last week.
And I'm glad they did. Yeah.
So, you know, but you know, it comes with the territory. You're a politician. You say something, sure. Whether the local media in Buffalo, the national media, they're going to hold you accountable to make sure what you're saying is accurate. That's the responsibility of the news media. And so I guess the question is today Trump finally released $5.6 million in contributions. He could have simply released a document, put it on the website, shown the organizations. I have a copy of it right here, an impressive list, $5.6 million going to veterans, $1 million out of his personal contribution going to the U.S. Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation. He didn't have to hold a news media, a news conference and badger the news media. He could have just posted that at the same time, right?
That's very true, but again, Donald's new to politics. You know he's frustrated. He takes things very personally. He's new to this, and I know, you know, myself, when I was new to it as the county executive, you know, I'd go home shaking my head. I wanted to fight as well. Donald's a fighter, so you're right. He could have just released it. That's not his style, and I'm glad he did release it, because it certainly answered all the critics that were suggesting that he didn't raise the money, didn't contribute the money. So I am glad that it's out there, and I'm not going to speak to you know, how he did it, whether it was just a quiet release or a noisy news conference, but I'm glad this now has been questions asked and questions answered.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break, Congressman. There are more questions for you. He's running for president.